Hello again, folks. I just finished recording the previous episode of Bud on Film, and I thought to myself, how can I make that worse? So I had a little dinner, I got a little buzzy, and now here I am again. Today we're going to talk about uh, Scanners movies because I'm a big fan of all the Scanners movies. And there's more than people might think. So we'll start off with the most obvious Scanners movie, which is Scanners. David Cronenberg Scanners. I imagine most people watching this have heard of it or have seen it. Basically the story of a bunch of people who've their parents took this experimental drug in the 50s, I think, or 60s. I can't remember what time. And so they took this experimental drug while pregnant with them. And it had side effects that all the children born with it have crazy psychic powers or telekinetic powers. There's the famous head exploding scene in this, and that led the way to a lot of great head exploding in the future as well. But the head explosion in this is one of the great moments of cinema. So I really enjoy this movie a lot. It's my favorite David Cronenberg movie. Second being Shivers, or AKA They Came From Within. Um, I, I definitely prefer this sort of like the earlier days of Cronenberg in general to later when he started becoming like, oh, I'm a serious filmmaker now, and that sort of thing. I don't know. But Scanners is super duper awesome. And it features a lot of like the fun thing about Scanners is Scanners battles two scanners. Scanners are the psychic people, and they start having a psychic fight with each other. It's basically just a lot of close-ups of them like tensing their face and thinking really hard, while the crazy scanners like sound effect happens a lot, which is this weird sort of droning noise, like almost like kind of like a weird siren or a whine. It should be really annoying, but something about it is really awesome. I really enjoy it every time. And part of the fun of the Scanners battles in any Scanners movies is that as that weird little sort of whiny noise builds, it's going to lead to something pretty stupendous. Often a head explosion, or the finale of this movie, which is a pretty wacky special effects dealy. Michael Ironside is the bad guy in this. I love Michael Ironside. I hope you do too. Yeah, I don't think he's like a Canadian guy, but he lives in Canada. He's not Canadian born, but he's clearly, I think, lived in Canada for quite some time. He's shot a lot of things here. And he's in so many like terrible little like straight to video movies or B movies, that sort of thing, that like a lot of the time the best part about it is the like 10 minutes that Michael Ironside is in it. But he's always great. And he's particularly awesome in this. This is one of the, I mean, for my books, one of my favorite Michael Ironside performances, next to him in like Starship Troopers and Total Recall. Honestly, top two for me: Starship Troopers in this, and then probably number three, probably like Total Recall. Total Recall's a blast. Anyway, Scanners is also awesome. It's got this really cool vibe throughout it. Like it's sort of like this lower key. Like it borders on being a horror movie and an action movie and sci-fi, obviously. But like part of the neat thing about it is it has this like sort of weird like I mean I hesitate to say Cronenbergy because obviously he made it. But it's got this like otherworldliness that he sort of had. Cronenberg had this thing where beyond like his obvious penchant for body horror, the outside worlds beyond the body in his movies, the people were often, there is sort of like an unsettling nature to them. It seems like beyond, like, obviously one of his big themes was body horror, but it very much, the weird horrors of the body would radiate throughout his movies. And that would be like a societal horror. So like there's a really like kind of like the main character in this has this really the main actor sort of monotones all his like lines, and he has this weird like sort of otherworldly nature to him. His like eyes are really intense and staring all the time while he monotones all his lines. And for many years people, and I think still, like a lot of people just think it's a really bad job at acting, which maybe it is. I mean, that could be the case. But I think it works for the movie. It works with Cronenberg's whole like vibe he goes for in this. But also, upon rewatching it recently, the thing I'd sort of forgot or maybe never picked up on in all my other previous watchings in this movie is they say that his character, he'd basically been living on the streets and he couldn't control his scanning, reading everybody's minds all the time. So he only like ever heard other people's voices in his head. He never could even hear his own thoughts. He was just being constantly droned out by everybody else around him. And so he really didn't even know what his own voice sounded like. He couldn't speak to anybody because he had, he basically like, he's learning how to be human in this. And so it sort of makes sense that the character, when he talks to people, he doesn't really talk like a normal person would, like he doesn't know how to inflect and show emotion. So it makes a weird kind of sense within the context of the movie. I mean, I don't think I've seen the actor in anything else, so I don't know if maybe that was just a bad performance, but that could be the other way too. I don't know. I think it works for it. Even if it was just a shitty performance, I don't really care. It's still a great movie and it's awesome. Which brings me to Scanners 2 and 3, which I recently picked up from Eyesore Cinema in Toronto. Scanners 2 and 3 are also awesome. Honestly, to tell you the truth, between the initial, like the trilogy of Scanners movies, I think they're one of the best trilogies ever made. I think quality-wise, they made... I'm not going to say they're better than Star Wars, because, everybody has their own opinion. Honestly, I'm probably just trying to lazily poke the bear there with Star Wars fans, many of which are my friends. Scanners 2 and 3. It's a really awesome trilogy altogether. Honestly, they all kind of rule in their own special way. I would say you could almost make a case for any of the three being the best, but that's not probably true. I mean, technically, I think Scanners is still my favorite. And granted, I haven't watched these ones as much. But Scanners 2, we'll go Scanners 2, The New Order. Too many taglines on that poster. Anyway, so Scanners 2, The New Order. It's clearly shot in Montreal. I don't remember if the first one is. Probably early Cronenberg. So Scanners 2, New Order is, I don't know the actor's name, but he's kind of famous for being like in a couple of like weird things. I never really watched the show Stargate Atlantis, but apparently he's like a really beloved character in that. I only know that because I have a friend who's really into Stargate Atlantis, and he showed me a few episodes trying to get me into the show. I couldn't do it. I couldn't watch the Stargate Atlantis. But I did see the appeal of that character, and that actor is very good. Oh, he was also in Cube. He's probably more known for being in Cube than Stargate Atlantis. But the fans of his character in Stargate Atlantis are big fans. And he's always, like, I've always, anything I've seen that actor in, he's always good. But he's the main guy in this. And he's he does a really good job in it. The movie itself has this whole like really neat style to it. It's not quite a Cronenberg style. It seems more like colorful and vibrant, but it definitely, like, you could argue maybe like 80s music video-y, but it really works really well for this. And I'm trying to think of more ways to say how it's great. It's a really fun ride. Yeah, in many ways just as good as the first. Maybe not as dark. It gets dark. I don't know. It's really awesome. And then Scanners 3, The Takeover. That one is, what makes it great is that it's kind of worse. But in all the ways it's like bad, make it really fun and entertaining. The main actress in this, so she becomes the villain of it because of this weird, like, sort of new drug they've got to control scanners. She takes it as like experimental drug, and it like drives her mad, and she wants to take over the world and use scanners to take over the world and all that stuff. And she gets really mean. And she's great in it. She's like amazing. She plays it so over the top, but like in just the right ways. And apparently the director, same director for both of these movies. I can't remember his name right now, but he would go on to do Screamers as well. Screamers. Another movie I love. But then Scanners 3, the director of this one, same director, he married the main lady from Scanners 3, the crazy over-the-top evil lady. And she's in Screamers. I think she was in all of his movies from then on. So it's sort of like, oh, that's sweet. They found love and continued making silly B movies together. It's pretty awesome, actually. But you know, what else? It's sort of like, at times, it's kind of like a Scanners kung fu movie, but it's funny because they use like telekinesis and stuff. So the like main guy, after coming back from the Buddhist temple, he's like fighting all these guys off with his scanners power. He's just going woo with his brain, and they're going flying over tables and stuff. They get these stunt guys. I actually I looked it up to see where they filmed, and it said in Thailand, I think. Or, yeah, Thailand, maybe Tibet. No, Thailand. Would have been Thailand. And I'm like, oh, watching that movie, you're like, okay, maybe they shot one scene in Thailand. Maybe. The rest of it is Montreal. Definitely Montreal. There's no way it's Thailand. But yeah, it's a pretty fun ride. And again, the big scanners battle at the end. This one is especially, like, for a scanners battle, which I said was mostly just close-ups of people's faces, this one gets a little more physical, and I mean it in like the most comedic and entertaining way possible. It's just, again, because the lady goes so over the top with stuff, she just makes it more fun. It's like, it's pretty ridiculous. There's like a lot of just neat scenes in it. Which leads into the Scanner spin-off series, Scanner Cop. It's like, of course they had to combine them, Scanner and Cop. For people who aren't familiar with the sort of 80s, 90s, I think late 80s, early 90s obsession with putting something cop and then on like a straight-to-video movie or whatever, there's a whole bunch of different cop movies. There's Samurai Cop, there's Cyborg Cop, there's Karate Cop, there's Psycho Cop, there's Maniac Cop, there's Hollywood Cop also, there's Kindergarten Cop, I guess. But yeah, there's a lot of whatever cops movies. Scanner Cop is one of them. And what makes it great is it's a cop movie about a scanner cop. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Richard Lynch is the bad guy. Fucking, he, and again, the Scanners head explosion scene in this, it's great because in every Scanners movie, they have to have a head explosion since the iconic head explosion in the first one. So each one tries to put its own unique spin on the head explosion. And this one is one of the better ones. It's pretty fun. I like it. There's a part where Scanner Cop tries to scan a woman who's dying, and she's a bad lady, and she drags him into hell with her a little bit, and that's pretty cool. So Scanner Cop, it's a fun movie. Sorry. Like I said, I ate a little dinner before this, and I had a shit ton of arugula, so I hope there's none of that in my teeth right now. Not that my teeth are pretty to look at it the first place. Anyway, Scanner Cop. I keep talking around it. Like, I don't know, Scanner Cop, it's pretty self-explanatory. I know, there's a lot of great special effects. This is, I think, the first straight-to-video Scanner movie, though maybe all the sequels are straight-to-video. But yeah, they still had a pretty damn good effects budget or guy, and it all looks pretty cool. And Scanner Cop, I'm going to talk about Scanner Cop 2 briefly. That's the follow-up to Scanner Cop 1. Clearly, Scanner Cop 2. Vulcan's Revenge. Vulcan's Revenge. No, I wanted to say Atkins Revenge, but, you know, Scanner Cop went low carb and then he got in trouble. So the thing about Scanner Cop 1 is Scanner Cop, the main guy, he's hesitant to use his scanner powers because he's been taking the drug to suppress them for so long, and he knows if he gets carried away with his scanner powers, it could be trouble. So there's a little bit of back and forth throughout the movie, whether he's going to be full Scanner Cop or if he's just going to be a regular cop who happens to be a scanner. And then he eventually goes, no, I'm a Scanner Cop. I'm going to use my scanning for good. And, you know, it pays off. But in Scanner Cop 2, he uses his Scanner Cop abilities all the way through. And it's quite a fun ride. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to talk about this one very briefly because it's been the longest since I've rewatched it, and I don't really remember it too well. I probably should have rewatched it before doing a video involving it. But I do remember enjoying it quite a bit. And he's more, like, Scanner Cop's more badass now. In this one, he's been on the force a little longer. In the first one, he's a rookie. And so in this one, he's like got a leather jacket and his hair's growing out a little more, and he's like, you know, making bad guys shoot themselves in the leg with his scanner's powers. So yeah, Scanner Cop 2, obviously fun. I need to rewatch it soon, but it's been a bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. And so that brings me into the sort of next category of Scanners movies, which is unofficial Scanners movies. Movies that aren't really Scanners movies, but are pretty much Scanners movies. And there's two of them that I know of. The first one is Brian De Palma's The Fury. And I mean, this is really pretty much a scanner. Brian De Palma's Scanners. I think he was thinking of it more as like sort of a follow-up to Carrie with the psychic teenager, but Carrie isn't really a Scanners movie. Not in my books, anyway. Carrie's a very good movie. I like it a lot, but it's not a Scanners movie. And that's where you get into kind of a weird distinction, or at least I do, of what makes a Scanners movie a Scanners movie, and what makes a psychic teenager horror movie a psychic teenager horror movie. Might be the head exploding. I'm not really sure. It might just be a general vibe of weird psychic telekinetic powers mixed with head exploding, mixed with various other stuff. But for some reason, I think The Fury is a Scanners movie, and Carrie is not. And that's the final word on that. Nah, not really. But the Fury is, I mean, technically, I can't say it's a good movie. Not one of Brian De Palma's like really celebrated, beloved, great movies, but I really like it. I think it's fun. Although it is like too long and kind of meandering in parts. Um, it's it's sort of like there's definitely times where you're like, what was Brian De Palma going for with this? But that's kind of part of the fun of it. So it stars Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas is not the scanner in this one. He's the father of a scanner. His teenage boy gets abducted from him. Teenage, like maybe early 20s or something, which is the opening scene of this movie. Because Kirk Douglas was a psychopath who had to constantly establish his like physical capabilities and how like young and virile he always was and like handsome and stuff. So in every movie he would have to like prove his physicality. And so in this one, like the first scene is him like beating his son in a swimming race because he's still got it. So Kirk Douglas's son gets immediately abducted by these like shadowy government scientists things who want to study him because he's a scanner boy. So, and at the same time, later, so Kirk Douglas is trying to find his son. He bumps into, or he finds another girl who is another scanner. I can't remember her name, but she was Amy Irving. Amy Irving? Yeah, Amy Irving, probably. Or somebody else. But she was also in Carrie. She was like the girl who tried to help Carrie, but she too little, too late. Nobody can help Carrie. She's crazy and she's got psychic powers. Anyway, so Amy Irving is also a scanner, and I mean, John Cassavetes is the bad guy. So it's got this sort of like the older guard of big Hollywood actors who are sort of falling out of favor at this point, mixed with younger actors who, I mean, they didn't really actually pick up to be big things beyond Amy Irving, whoever the guy is in this, I can't remember, and whoever Kirk Douglas's son is. Yeah, it's kind of like a weird movie where it like feels like it doesn't really know what it wants to be, but at the same time there's really awesome scenes in it. There's this one slow-mo chase scene in it that is very silly, but at the same it's very silly, but and it's supposed to be really intense, but that's again it's part of the fun. And the exploding heads in the end of this is quite a thing. It's it's pretty awesome when it happens, and it really happens very good. Who doesn't love it? There's technically one other what I consider an unofficial Scanners movie. I don't own it. I can't hold it up. It's called The Mind's Eye by Joe Begos. Joe Begos or Begos. So he's sort of gotten a little bit of popularity now because he also directed a movie called VFW and another one called Bliss. And before that, he did Mind's Eye and another movie called Almost Human. He does a lot of like low budget horror movies. And Mind's Eye is a pretty awesome not Scanners movie. It's maybe not my favorite of the bunch, but I will get it eventually because soft spot for Scanners movies. And I generally like that Joe Begos' movies. So, yeah, I mean, Scanners movies. I like it's sort of hard to quantify what I like about them so much. It's that weird mesh of like sci-fi and action and stuff. It's almost like sort of one of those you could almost consider it connected to like a comic booky sort of feeling in a way, but more in those sort of like in the vein of like maybe like an Unbreakable or something, just like a kind of superhero-y, but not at all. Very much in a real world. Um, so, no, real world, the world of Scanners. But anyway, they're always fun. They're consistently entertaining throughout the entire series. So check out a Scanners movie if you haven't already, and enjoy some head popping fun. Bye, everybody.